opportunities for groups to do that, to do that effectively. But
I think
a little bit of work.
Arlene, I think Arlene said it well. It's a big opportunity out there for the folks who get it right.
That's right. I think so.
Sorry for my introduction. I'm getting us kicked on to Periscope. Keeps bumping us off for some bandwidth feeds. So I'm teching out on the side here, trying to strangle the feed rate out of it. But anyway, sorry, right. I don't mean to be disconnected on this one.
So Robert, we sort of beat that one to death. What do we got? What else do we want to talk about?
Well, hey, did you guys, sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulty here. Did you guys notice the top story? That's a new feature that I think we should start with a top story and end with Rutrow and kind of, bookend the, but I don't know. Some people, if you like Alex Jones and that sort of conspiracy theory type stuff, there's a blog post that I saw. I'll post it here in the comments. A Q&A: what hoteliers must know about digital marketing from some crazy guy. I don't know. Never really heard of the guy, but
some quack.
Obviously a former, maybe boy band member who got famous doing that and is kind of trading on his looks and charisma, I think, sort of thing. But anyway, please feel free to discuss. A fellow, it appears to be represented by timpeter.com.
I think he just married. I think he's riding on the marriage thing. I think he's just trying to get his credentials from who he's related to. I don't know if it's really a caliber thing. I'm just guessing.
There are so many jokes I want to make to that one that I'm not about to right now. It was a very nice thing. They reached out to me and asked, if they could ask some questions and the like. And I actually thought it was just going to be I thought they were polling like a group of people and it would be, the odd quote from me or whatever. But turned out it was a full Q&A. So
hefty interview. How many times, Tim, do you think in the last year have you been asked what's the new thing in digital marketing?
Oh God, every couple of weeks. I mean, all the time, right? And I think it's funny that you bring that up. And I didn't necessarily want to spend too much time on this article, but the one thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was worth paying attention to is everybody always wants to know what's new. Everybody always wants to know what's going to change dramatically and all that kind of stuff. And I think those are interesting. We should certainly be conscious of them, but there's so much stuff. Just the things we were talking about with groups is a great example of there are plenty of areas where hotels today and customers today have needs and have had needs for some time that we still don't do well, right? I talked about the content game. We really need to up the content game, improve the content game. That's not new. We've been talking about that for years. And there's a reason why we're still talking about it, right?
I think that arose when film first came into use. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of the new stuff, when we think about voice, when we think about AI, when we think about blockchain, those might be interesting as we go forward, and all of those could be really important. However, for two of those three, what's really going to make them work is having really good content. So, how about we put carts in the right position relative to horses and then, go from there?
The thing we do in this industry that makes me crazy is that, we're very quick to follow the latest shiny object, right? And we never go deep. And it's just next thing. To your point, Tim, we have been talking about content forever. And yet everyone, nods their head. They agree, yeah, content's important, but no one ever really does anything about it. There are outliers, certainly, and there are people who have gotten their heads around it and figured it out. But for the most part, it's still, we just skim the surface and then we go on to the next thing. And we never really fix anything the way it ought to be fixed, like other businesses do.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, please go ahead, Lauren. Please.
No, I'm going to bring this to a case example of what I'm dealing with a client in particular is that they want to revamp a lot of stuff. And they really just, once we got into it, it wasn't just being able to put lipstick on a pig or to put a Band-Aid on a sore. It required, after going into it, it was like, look, you're going to have to rip all this stuff out. You have to change the modality completely. It's not, you've outgrown the capacity of what it is that you're looking that you can just work on. It's just no longer just let's add the next thing. I mean, we joke about Marriott. We think that Marcia is nothing but a squirrel in a cage in the bottom of Bethesda because they kept adding layers upon layers of an antiquated system, and now it's something completely different. It's like out of Star Trek Nomad. You know, it started small, got really big. And so,
actually, it started actually really big, and that stuff.
It just got bigger from there.
It just got bigger. Yeah, it just got bigger. Right. But the idea of it is that sometimes there is this need to go, and to Darlene's point, to go deeper and just take the whole thing and redevelop the whole process to it. Because a lot of times people do it for show. They just decide that we'll do it so that whoever asked me to get it done sees that something was done about it.
Right.
But it really didn't solve the long term. It's kick the can down the road. Because if I don't have to be responsible for its potential failure, then I don't have to be responsible for its potential success either. Because it's too much where I run a risk.
I certainly understand that point. I agree with the conclusion. I don't know that I agree with what the motivation is. You know, I think people.
I'm being very skeptical. Dealing with a lot of people.
People are pulled in a lot of directions, right? You know, especially public companies. You know, Robert said the beautiful line a moment ago that was spot on about they're gonna get asked on an earnings call, and they have to have an answer, right? And so there's this tendency, and you know, Darlene said it quite rightly a moment ago about people who suffer from shiny syndrome, right? It's like, ooh, shiny, and then suddenly they're moving on to the next thing, or they're getting asked about it, or they saw something in the trades, and they're bouncing from thing to thing. And I think the best thing that a lot of hotels can do to really improve their sales and improve their marketing and the like is to use, I can't remember who I first heard use this line, it's an old line, but put more wood behind fewer arrows, right? Focus on the things that are really important. We put so much emphasis on, the website, and I'm a digital guy, so we should put emphasis on the website, right? Okay, but put less emphasis on the frame and put more emphasis on the painting, right? Nobody's going to the Louvre to look at the frame around the Mona Lisa. How about we actually make sure we have the Mona Lisa, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really critical, and something that I think gets missed a lot because it's easy to go, ooh, this is cool. Let's have the little pop-up where we get the email address before they leave. Ooh, wait, let's have the, strike-through pricing so we can encourage people to book now. Ooh, wait, let's have the live chat. Ooh, wait, no, answer the damn questions that they have, right? Make sure you've got good text. Make sure you have good images. Make sure you've got good video that can help people understand, is this property going to provide them the value that they want and actually give them the sort of experience that they want? We're in the hospitality business. We're trying to make sure people have a great experience. That experience should start from the moment they first interact with your content. And for a lot of properties today, it just isn't doing it. And that's because we're getting distracted by all the other crap.
Yeah.
Right. Very true. Very true.
And one thing to add on the analogy of the more wood with fewer arrows, which really kind of applies to the technology involved, is you may need a bigger bow.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
Yep.
Right? I mean, doing content well is not easy. It takes effort, but it's well worth it in the long run. And if you look at where the OTAs are investing right now, if you look at where Google has invested a lot over the last couple of years, if you look at where Facebook is investing right now, it's around the content. It's around answering people's questions more effectively. So, yes, there are some new things coming that I think we want to be conscious about. I think voice search is going to be huge, huge, huge. It's already getting big. I think that, blockchain has the potential to do some interesting stuff. I think AI is going to be so big, people don't realize how big it's going to be.
It may giveth, it may taketh away.
Oh yeah. I think AI is going to be big in the way that the internet was big.
But one thing to add
just one last thing. But I think most of those, voice search, I think we'll probably see some interesting stuff this year. AI, we're starting to see some interesting stuff, and we'll see some interesting things, I think, as the year goes on. Blockchain, I think we will see some interesting things. I don't think that's a 2018 thing in any real sense, in any meaningful sense, right? The groundwork's all being laid. There's great work being done. But is your business going to get better in 2018 because of blockchain? Almost certainly not. I would be floored if that was true.
Right.
And
it's and if you rely on it and build it from scratch, you may be sorely disappointed in terms of the performance of the blockchain or the costs of transactions and to actually get those blocks rolling. And there's actually a great item later we can talk about. It's a huge challenge on the content though, because again, I've got to stress, you've got to have an intelligent deployment of it. You can do really cool 4K high-res video, 360, amazing. And if you go and plop that into your little web page and somebody's trying to look at it on their phone, this is not going to end well. Sort of thing. They just go, well, gee, this could be the coolest thing ever, but if it can't get delivered efficiently, and groups like Google are going to start punishing you aggressively for your slow websites.
So
please pay attention to that,
because this is huge.
That was something we didn't get to last week. I think we skipped over.
Google,
I will have to go.
Google has announced. Google rarely says this kind of stuff publicly. But Google said out loud, if your website is slow, you're going to rank worse in the mobile rankings starting in July.
Right.
So people are searching for you on mobile. By the way, this is where I think voice search is interesting. About the last numbers I've seen said 1 in 5 mobile searches. So first of all, sorry. Mobile search is now more than half of all searches. Right? So people searching on their mobile phone, more than half. Voice search on mobile is, the last number I saw was about 1 in 5, and that number is from 2015, I think. So I'm pretty sure that number's gone up.
I think it's getting up to somewhere in the 40%, and I think in some cases they're predicting it's going to be over 50 for things like maps or quick little store hours, things like that. I mean, I can say with me, I'll say, navigate to whatever. My wife actually last night wanted to know what time something closed. I didn't go into a general Google search or anything like that. I went into maps, right? Because I was on my phone. It was easy. Boom, pops right up. It's closing in an hour. It has all that stuff.
This is where I think the AI and the battle between Google and Alexa gets kind of interesting. Is I don't even bother with the maps anymore. I ask Google Assistant, hey, Google Assistant, blah, 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 is such and such, such open? Yeah, and I always say, is it still open? What I usually say is it's still open. And it'll actually go and tell me, it's still open until 6.
Right.
It's like,
as
how
long
fast
as
is that now?
Is accurate.
What I find in all of this is asking the question, why is voice search becoming so popular? What is it that people are doing that are driving them to ask the question verbally versus typing, right? And so we go to your point, Robert, were you guys having dinner when your wife said, hey, what time does this place close? I mean, we have to look at what people are doing, how they're behaving, and understand that. And when we understand that, we'll be able to create our content and our product to better answer those questions, right?
Right. Well,
Robert
actually, hang on.
So.
As the lone Android person here, I was driving, and so my wife on her Apple phone, we have discovered, don't ask Siri a question like that. Siri is not good at that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so she went into Google Maps.
That's true.
if I hadn't really been driving and didn't want to mention, I could have just, and I can't say the words. It's 2 letters that begins with an O and then a letter that is just right before L on the alphabet, followed by Google. It says looking at his phone and his Google Home.
Yes, I'll tell you something that's been kind of a fun test.
If you say that, it starts listening to what you want to ask it, and starts responding.
Right.
Oh, yes. One of the fun tests we've had is that I have a couple of clients that have destination hotels, and some of it's situational, the micro moment mentality of saying, okay, something's actually eventfully happening right now that's near the hotel that is a particular interest. And they require certain phraseology. So we've actually taken where you can do your snippet data for your feed as to what it actually shows for it. And we're beginning to insert term phrases that are related to specific events in the time sequence of its interest, where it's not just static referral, it's a particular referral phraseology of a now or at time or whatever that's related to the event that's in that. And we're actually getting strong traction points on it. I mean, it's not earth-shaking, it's not mind-blowing, it's a methodology that's never been done that I'm aware of in the sense of phrasing your searchability content in a time frame of when it is of interest by the way you phrase the points. And so we're putting ad campaigns similar to that because obviously, even though Google may not be speaking of this, they probably defer to some combination of what you're paying for in the space that you also organically are related to when it comes to how well you show up in the assistant evaluation verbally. When you're asking for things, I don't think we're going to claim that you pay, you get to be in front. But yeah, I think you pay and you get in front. And so we're putting ads now that have some phrasings that are referring to timology. So in that sense, I mean, it's just kind of neat that these are the evolving ways of changing your content evaluation as to just being statically referable, like, yes, we're 1 block away from X, as it is situationally referable that we're this with this in relationship to now. So,
and it goes back to Darlene's question, which I think is right on the money, right? A line I've used for years is mobile is not a device; it's a situation. It's if I'm out and about, if I'm driving in my car, if I'm running through an airport, if I'm, getting off a flight or something like that.
Your life. It's your life. You're walking down the street.
You're walking down the street, right?
You're sitting on your sofa. It doesn't matter.
Well, but the difference with sitting on your sofa, the only difference, and I'm not saying that the same couldn't happen then, but the only difference there is you may be able to give it more time and attention. What we find people doing a lot these days is I've got 12 seconds right now between, I'm standing in line about to board my flight, or I got just a few minutes before they close the cabin door. I need to get an answer to this right now, So it's where are you in that situation that says, how can we answer that question quickly and easily, give people the best answer in that near moment that they have, in that micro moment, as people call it.
And I would argue, even though people may have more flexibility with their time, they want, when they're sitting on their couch or doing whatever, they probably want the same response with just as good data, and it doesn't matter. So then they can spend the rest of their life doing something productive or more entertaining,
Netflix, right.
Or completely unproductive. That's right.
Right.
Or there's a million scenarios, right? I'm in the kitchen and I can't find my quarter measuring cup, my quarter cup vessel, right?
Right.
How many tablespoons in a quarter cup? Right. There's like a million trillion examples of that where I am in an environment where I could go to a laptop or I could, but it's just easier to ask the question because I need it immediately for the situation I'm in. And I think we now think of mobile, or we should think of mobile, not just in the context of I'm walking somewhere or I'm outside of my house, because, and I think we all do it, right? The phone's sitting there and it's always sitting there. And so so now I think people are starting to use their mobile devices, and maybe we just need to rename them. Maybe it isn't maybe the moniker mobile just has this connotation that we have to be on the move.
Well, it's the instant gratification machine, is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's answer my question right now.
I found that it's also a learning curve of what it can do too, because I mean, I'm constantly. At first, I used to be when I want to walk the dog and I want to listen to a podcast, I'd say, hey, blah, 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 open up a podcast, and then in the app I'd scroll to where I want to listen to, tap the episode. I now realize I can actually tell it to go exactly what podcast, exactly what episode, and resume or whatever like that. And I'm like, this is freaking great. And same to your point, Darlene, with cooking. I didn't realize that with this Google Assistant, I can make it pause between steps.
Yeah.
So if there's something that's telling me to do, I can say pause, and it'll pause, and then be like, or I can say pause between steps, and it'll actually pause after each step until I say resume. And it's crazy that because there's sometimes we do some complex stuff and your hands are dirty. You have the iPad sitting over there and you're kind of, it's like, no, I can just talk to the dang thing, and it's just. To me, it's like, this is just fun. I mean, it's like having a chef over your corner going, what do I do next? What do I do next? So, yeah.
And developing skills is not that hard. I mean, you can use this, then that, and have it do. If you have, specific things, it's pretty, with Google Assistant, I can say, or I'm sorry, the Google Home. Yeah, you can do some pretty interesting things. The other thing, though, that I think will really be a great battle is, yes, Amazon definitely owns the home right now. I mean,
the
penetration is much
Yes.
at the moment. Google, though, has its assistant, and so the Google Home is also interacting with my Android, so it's with me all the time, right? That's, I think, a huge structural advantage. Apple coming out with, what is it, the
HomePod.
HomePod. Right.
I think
see what happens with Apple trying to use Siri to go, kind of play catch up with Google, Amazon. Those three fighting it out always gets interesting.
Well, so I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think Apple's screwed in that area for a couple of reasons. And I could be wrong about this, and I won't go too far down the rabbit hole because we want to make this, relevant to what hoteliers and folks watching this are
and being an Apple person, it makes you emotionally feel bad.
No. Apple has made some decisions. They've made some decisions that are kind of silly in this regard. So obviously they've put a lot of emphasis on they want to protect people's privacy, right? And I'm not judging that they're doing a good job of it or not doing a good job of it, but that's their claim. As a result, one of the things that they do today that is really, really dumb is they actually only store requests that come in through Siri for 90 days. Mm-hmm. Period. That's an immense amount of training data for an AI that they're getting access to for a period, but then it goes away. That's not how you make AI better.
Right.
So I think that's actually not great for Apple in the long run, where Amazon or Google clearly don't give a damn about people's privacy. See what I did there? No, I'm just playing. But they're storing that data and they're getting access to it for longer periods that can make those interactions more effective. My last point on this really quick is my understanding, and I was not at CES, so I'm just catching up on all the CES coverage still. But, my understanding was you couldn't go past any booth at CES that somebody hadn't installed Alexa in the, sorry, Alexa, you can ignore me, that they hadn't installed Amazon's voice assistant in devices of all kinds. So the penetration thing may only be to Google's advantage for a period, but that's what we'll have to see. Like, I don't know the answer to that one by any stretch. That's going to have to play out over time.
Right.
Certainly, and Google is well positioned.
My theory on the Apple 90 days is that they're collecting those signals, though. So there's some sort of, not necessarily the raw stream, and I think the raw stream is better to have, because then you can do things that you didn't anticipate. But I think they may be processing this and somehow breaking it up or doing something where it's not directly, associated with
right.
personally identifiable information, but I would have to think they're doing something as opposed to just casting that
Right,
away.
right. I hope you're right. Speaking as a guy who likes Apple stuff, and I'm not religious about this. I like Apple stuff because I like Apple stuff, and I've used it for a long time. Now transitioning would be more hassle than I want to deal with, as much as anything. I would,
Which is how a lot of people approach religion. So.
But I would love for Siri to be more effective. I've told the story on this show before. I know I have. I was driving home late one night, back roads, didn't really know where I was, and needed to get gas. And, asked Siri to find me an open gas station. And the voice part of it took 3 tries. On the 3rd try, it was great. Once it gave me the answer, I'm like, this is what it's supposed to do. This was fantastic. Maps came up and took me right there, and it was great. So I can certainly understand the appeal of it actually working.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, the functionality of Google Maps and the genius of integrating all their local into that one platform, right? So you have kind of this geospatial relationship. It's amazing now. Yeah, you're driving along, and yes, you're a little bit distracted. You want to go stop for gas station, food, whatever. You hit that little thing. I actually haven't really experimented with the voice side. I bet it works, but I just don't necessarily know the command. But you hit that little magnifying glass, and it comes up with little dots of restaurants or gas station, all the things that they've learned.
Oh yeah.
People who
So how do
generally
we
look for, maybe in the context of where you're driving, right? Of what people are looking for, maybe in the context of the time of day, maybe in of whatever, right. And you just go boom. And then if you hit restaurants, boy, when I see what comes up, I see a preference to restaurants that I have been to before, some that are local, some with the types of food that we like.
When I see that, I see a big advertising revenue stream. But
oh yeah.
But so in the context of hotels, how do we see this being used by people on property, as an example?
Right. So
by guests or staff.
Well,
yes.
No, but also, you have obviously you need to make sure you have your NAPW taken care of, right? So your name, address, phone number, your citations for your property, and the website. Make sure that they are consistent and correct across all the different directories. Obviously, reviews play a role. So the more reviews you can get on both Google as well as TripAdvisor and Yelp, you're going to be in better shape there. But it is local search functionality you have to pay attention to, right? And how do you rank better in local search?
I don't have Alexa or Google Home, but can you ask to Alexa, as an example, to tell you what the reviews are for a particular property?
If you have certain skills installed, yes. Amazon is not as good. I can't say the name of the AI. Amazon is not as good at that today as even Siri is, and Siri's not as good as Google Assistant at this point for that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the answer is yes, sort of, right?
Now, to Robert, remember when we were talking about Viv back in the day, and it got swallowed up by Samsung, and it's now Bixby? Yeah. Okay, so I convinced my wife to go over.
And Bixby is apparently horrible. People hate Bixby, which is amazing.
Yeah, but regrettably, it did something that Google and Siri couldn't do, and that was we were asking for a string question about a musician in a group for a song that was played in a year, and we tried 15 different flavors of how to ask Google Assistant. I tried a half less than that on Siri, and I'm sorry, Lauren, da-da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, asked Bixby, and then it got silent. And we're like, oh, well, no, that didn't work. Came back with the answer. I'm like, damn. Yeah. I mean,
but this is a good point. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lauren. Finish.
No, that was it. That was the point. Just, there are different methodologies that these AIs are using, and I believe Bixby is the iteration of Viv, which was very impressive on the self-generation of coding.
But this is why I want to cycle back to what started this discussion just for a moment about putting more wood behind fewer arrows and focusing on the important things, and let's get the foundations right. Because the reality is all of these today are garbage. They're only good relative to what they were a year ago. They're only good relative to the fact that, 2 years ago, they didn't exist for all intents and purposes. The curve is impressive as hell, but none of them are consistently good yet, right? All of them
Google Assistant is getting there, though. It's getting the success rate. Because I think it's like running a customer service center or call center. In customer support, how many times do you solve the issue on the first call? Right. The speed of solution the first time. That's what all this is about, right?
And I agree.
In the 80s to 90s, at least for me, I think.
I agree. You
but
probably use it
with
more
the one
than
caveat,
most.
And the caveat is I have altered my behavior somewhat to structure the questions in a way where I know there will be greater success on the outcome, right? So yeah.
And I mean, I want to be really clear. I'm incredibly bullish on voice. I am so bullish on voice, it's not even funny. I just don't know that it's a 2018 problem. If I'm a hotel operator, if I'm a marketer, again, a lot of that is going to be driven by, do you have the right content to answer the damn question? Right. And is it formatted and structured in a way that can actually be taken advantage of? But if you're spending all your time worried about voice search today, you really should be answering more fundamental questions at the same time. And
I think to your point, Robert, is that it's not so much us as what we're doing with data for voice as of yet. It's what they're going to be doing with the data that they have available to what we're already providing for content. For instance, just to connect some of the dots that we're talking about. Say, for instance, time situationally, it's late in the evening. You're driving, to your point, Darlene, there's a map that's showing up, and all of a sudden it transitions from showing places to eat, because you just recently stopped at a restaurant, to now showing places to stay. And especially if it knows where you're already going to, or whether there's a distance to it, or you have already not made reservations, that it begins to suggest. And then it talks to your car that knows that, from watching your eyes, because that's in cars now, that you're getting sleepy. It's recommending saying, hey, Lauren, it looks like you're getting sleepy. Really, at next exit, there's such and such. You like Marriott's or you like Hilton's. And you know what? I can go over and get this taken care of for you, book it. I can give you the points, blah, 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 whatever it is. And handle that process for you, or at least suggest you to the point of that idea. And that's in their room. That's in their world. That's not ours. We just, to your point, Tim, we have to go over and make sure our data's there. So we're in that conversation.
That's right.
They know our hotel's there. That they know what we have. We know what we can be connected to, and that we have the ability for that transaction to occur in the platforms that they're generating. So yes, in that sense, it's not our problem or our solution. It's theirs to solve in putting the seats together.
And we're going to get to what you just described pretty quickly. One of the things about digital that I talk about all the time is that it's like bamboo, right? It creeps, or it sleeps, then it creeps, and then it leaps. It's this period of you can't see anything happening. And then you see these little green shoots, and the next thing you know, you turn around and go, oh my God, where did all this bamboo come from? And, we're sort of in that green shoots. We're in this green shoots stage right now where all of these things exist, right? And what's the old line? The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, right? So all of the pieces are getting lined up. But how many more rooms, if you're a hotelier, are you going to sell this year because of the scenario that Lauren just described? Probably on average 0, right? Now 2019, maybe, maybe it's a number that's worth counting. And in 2020, it's probably a number that could be a lot. I mean, I think this is going to happen relatively quickly, but we're only going to get there if you do the right foundational homework today of, do you have the data? Do you have the content? Do you have the connectivity? Do you answer the questions? Is it structured correctly? Such that when that tool exists, broadly, right, in 12, 16, 18 months time, you're in a place to actually really capture your fair share or more than your fair share. And that's why that's why I put so much emphasis. Not that I don't think this stuff is exciting. I think it's unbelievably exciting and cool. what's going to put more heads in beds for you today and also set you up for success as you go forward. This stuff, right?
Right. And to Darlene's original question, which we've kind of gone all around the guest experience.
Welcome to this week in hospitality digital marketing.
Where there's no hole we won't dig and no burrow we won't furrow.
I think we've got a tagline. but it's not just having, we've got an Alexa in our room. So it's like, what does the thing do? And the sophistication of, hey, it can open and close the blinds or adjust the thermostat or do. Those are relatively easy things to do. You can just walk over. If you need a little training manual to exactly phrase how to turn the temperature to whatever thing. And again, I don't know if someone from the UK comes in and says, please put the temperature to 20
degrees.
I want to know.
That may not be good.
Yeah. But going to a practical sense of it, I've come to I got a free Google Assistant because I bought a Nest thermostat that I put to my whole security system that talks to my phone and everything. And I put it in the bedroom, and Renee was like, "Well, what do we need it there for?" It's like, "Well, I don't know, just because it's free, and that's the only other room we have in the place." So I put it in, and now I use it a lot because I connected obviously my Google account with it. To ask for the day, I used to notice that I was pulling up my phone or pulling up my pad and tapping to make a schedule. Just I know what I have blocked out, but just to kind of mentally get my gear going in the morning as to what to expect and so forth. Now I ask, and it's just those little things, like to your point, being in the hotel room. It's not so much the neatness of the blinds going up or down or on or off or something like this. It's the convenience of not having your phone with you in the bathroom, but there's a way that it can hear you, that the speaker that is loud enough can tell you maybe something like that says, "Hey, what's going on today?" Or what's the news? Like the recent release from Siri now has it that it will read you the news. Now it hadn't been a feature before,
right?
But now it is, where now it will actually give you highlights of what you select as your news. Assistant does it. Assistant's already been doing it. But now Siri's joined that conversation of that perpetual growth in activity and engagement for the day. Just because, go ahead.
Well, Lauren, the only thing I wanted to add to that, but I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I first off, don't let me come across like the folks who are against technology. What do you call them?
Technophobes.
Luddites.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Luddite. I'm no Luddite. We've got 3 Echoes, right? And they absolutely change your behavior. There's no two ways about it. I couldn't tell you the last time I looked up the weather online.
Right.
Because I just ask instead. It's fantastic. It's my alarm clock. I'm enormously in favor of them. It's what we want to watch, and it goes back to Darlene's question, which I think was spot on before when she was asking why. How is this going to change our customers' behavior, and then how do we adapt from a business perspective to meet those behaviors? The thing that I know I'm probably sounding like I'm beating just one note here for a second, but there's a very, very specific reason for it, is that the way you answer the question is with your content. Right? Mm-hmm. If you don't have the content that answers the questions that people will ask as their behavior changes and they start asking for the questions of, how many rooms are available, or is there a room available at this time, or, do they have a swimming pool? Do they have a fitness center? Do they have whatever? What are the hours of those things, et cetera?
What are the hours of the pool?
What are the hours of the pool, right?
Yeah.
That's a thing you can't find on a lot of hotel websites already. No. And not only will you not be able to answer the question when they ask Google Assistant or their Echo or their Siri, you can't answer the question for people who go to your website today, which is, pretty much everybody you want to have stay in your hotel.
Yep.
Are there towels at the pool?
Yeah.
Do I need my room key to get in there? Yeah. All these basic questions which tie up the person at the front desk. And
you
have to look.
Get them to go look on Expedia to see if they can find the answer there, and then they don't come back.
And being the champion of personas, please, hoteliers, consider personas. I've
Oh,
been
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about this for a
Hey,
long
hey.
time.
Let's defend hoteliers that there is still that wonderful little book in your room that is constantly kept updated, totally unbiased, has no reference to anything. That little room guide. And the menus
The
are always up
Bible?
to date.
Oh,
Yeah, and, and the menus are always up to date. The hours are always correct, and it's clean and unspotted and unsoiled, and probably the really de facto go-to guide. Yeah, that's
yeah.
still there.
And
It's still there.
do not put a black light over it, please.
Yeah. Or wear gloves, use a towel, something, just whatever. But no, to the point of behavioral changes is that like for me now, I mean, I held out for the longest time getting the iPods. And they're magical. They really are. The AirPods, they're freaking amazing.
No.
It's just,
no, Lauren has.
I got the iPods. They're strapped into my head.
iPods. He tapes them to his head.
What happens? Yeah, I duct tape them. But anyway, so I now with my watch and that's phone calls for me. That's it. And then they did a wonderful thing. And Tim, this is like with the Series 3 watch. They have the Siri screen, so it's constantly changing what you need to know. Right. And you can talk to it whenever and so forth. But now I go out and I don't even worry about wallets and stuff because with the Apple Pay in most places now, I'm just tagging my watch. Right. The pods are in. It's like, and they sound great. I'm listening to music. I answer phone calls. It's changing my behavior on stuff.
Well, because that's what these things do, right? I mean, that is what this has done. That's what this did to some degree. That's what the Echoes are doing. I mean, we started this conversation by talking about voice. I can't imagine how big voice is going to be. It's going to be huge, right?
Well, but there's one thing that's a huge challenge for hotels are, yes, how do you do certain things in your property? Hey, I want to watch Netflix on the TV and stuff like that, that stuff is hard for these hoteliers to start off with. But the really tricky stuff is now going to be, since you love Siri and you've got all this stuff and Siri knows about you, it knows your preferences. How do you get that into the hotel room? Lauren, when you ask your Google Assistant, what's my day look like at home? You want to be able to do that in your hotel room. Well, how's that going to, because that's where the real power of the information is, which has all your preferences and all your history and everything that you like, all the things that you're associated. It has a link to your net. If you have a Google Home, it's linked to your Netflix account. It's linked to your Spotify account. It's linked to Panda, whatever you may use. How do the hotel companies figure that out between the hardware? Right. Oh, and Amazon, right? It's got your purchase history, what you want, all those sorts of things. What do you bring into the room? Or is there an independent piece of hardware that will work on an API basis with these? I don't see a lot of those folks going for that, except Microsoft, who is working with Amazon. I mean, Microsoft's thrown in the towel and is using Cortana with Echo. So that seems to be their direction, is to be more software based, cloud based, and how do you interact with other stuff. But I certainly don't see Apple and Google empowering Microsoft be the one who then links everything together. That does not seem like something they would want to have happen.
Arlene, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah. It's all fine, and we're talking about how we might use it in a hotel room. We may be on the bleeding edge of this stuff, right? But for the average guest, in my mind, I'm thinking, how does a hotelier monetize this technology in a way that is appropriate for their audience, right? And so, am I going to say, close the blinds? Fine, whatever. But I think there are other more basic things that hotels should be thinking about in terms of what is this going to do for my bottom line?
Well, and I think there's a very simple answer to that one, which I want to be fair. Anytime somebody says there's a very simple answer to what are undoubtedly complex questions, they're half full of crap. Okay, so I fully acknowledge this. At the same time, I don't think you should be trying to monetize this specifically. I think you should be trying to improve the guest experience, and if you improve the guest experience, you will get better ratings and reviews. You will get more repeat visits. You will extend your reach. You will extend your revenues. So I think this is more about, are you providing an outstanding hospitality experience to the guest at every single touch point? When you do that well, that turns into money for hotels, as opposed to, how do I become coin operated on this, right? But we can have the vibrating bed with the little box next to it that you drop that you slide the dollar bill into.
Yeah.
But I think it is better to say, how do you use this to extend the experience, give them a better a better sense of the kind of hospitality they receive, and let that turn into revenue through the regular progression of great ratings and reviews, extend your reach, extend your revenues.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's in an ideal world, but I think the reality is that it's going to take investment, and there's always going to be someone with the spreadsheet, right, who's going, okay.
Right. But this is the mistake we make again and again.
Because I don't think that's the reality.
No, I do think it's reality. I think this is the fight we need to have, right? I know I work with properties all over the place where when they run it as a financial asset, they struggle. And when they run it as a great hotel, they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Period.
If you filter through the guest experience value proposition, you never lose, because you're still keeping core to what the business model revenue generation stream is. Somebody has to want what you're selling, not just because you have it that you can sell it. So
right.
And it is it's those personas. What are your guests trying to do? Oh, it's your business traveler who's in midweek. It's your families who are in on even something as simple as that, and you start taking that apart, and then you from the front. You can certainly on the digital side of their whole experience of how you're discovered and everything like that. But even if they're driving in or they pull up in an Uber, it doesn't really matter. Follow that whole thing and work through it. And every customer contact point, everything they do, how can you make that better?
Going back to
marketing.
What are they trying?
Right.
What are they trying to do?
Product and experience and all of that, right? Lauren, you've been trying to butt in.
Well, I was just saying, going back to
excuse me.
I've been trying to cut in, right? So from going back to something Darlene originally brought up in the show when we first started with this, and how we went into the, you'd start something just for face value, but you never finish and go to the core depth of it. This is a perfect example of, there are intents where people say, oh yeah, personas. Yeah, we should be all about that. Let's make a persona. Persona. There's not a guest to a hotel. And yet they feel that one persona development solved and checked the box that we do personas. No, you did a persona on a business cycle for an event or a cycle. You have variable personas over the entire. Just look at the latest Trivago ad. They really have taken a marketing message that Darlene pointed out and made it into a commercial. I'm worried about fitness. The guy that's walking around. I'm worried about having breakfast. I'm worried about having my pet with me. He's literally showing you that there is a diversity of the same person, persona-wise, for a hotel to consider. And the first mistake that any hotel does is think they satisfy all of them. They don't.
Right.
To identify the ones that you have are capable of capturing, leave the ones or diminish the effort towards, because it really is, a law of diminished return. You can spend a lot of money trying to drag in somebody to your airport hotel for a resort destination value, and you're not going to get them no matter what you offer. Right. Okay. So do what you do best first. And then that goes back to the relationship with the client or the hotel. Refer to the hotel as to whom it is that they actually get, and use that as your reference point to begin to define these personas in the cycle that they have value. What we just talked about, we were just referring to in this whole conversation, most hotels at best have a single layer conversation about, and then they check the box that they created something for that answer, and then they keep driving at it as if it's their marketing mantra for the entire year, and it's not. That person doesn't exist year round for every marketing effort that they make. It's different people, same person, different people, persona-wise, through a cycle of business that they're familiar with your product. And they make the mistake in their email campaigns. They send the same stupid messaging out to the same people because they think there's the same value in it. It's not the same value. If you can start tailoring what the person's interest is, because historically you can see what they stayed for, whether they had multiple people with them, aka family travel, single travel, short day, you start defining your data segments in your CRM relationship and taking that same guest, but replying to them differently based on the type of year and time of year that is, you get much greater success out of your conversion value, because then you're giving value to the interest.
Absolutely.
To your point, Tim, to your guest. So,
right. I mean, I generally agree with everything you said. I would caution against, saying it's stupid or things. I think sometimes people are just pulled in a million directions, right? They're not focusing on the things that are most important. That if your target customer is anyone with a neck, you maybe have to give this a little more thought, right? You have to think about, who are we actually trying to talk to? Who are we actually trying to connect with?
Can you imagine us in the same meeting room? Okay, if we were trying to pitch the same client, and I go, and you go like, I think what my esteemed colleague is trying to say. He didn't call you stupid. He was referring to an intellectual level that was insufficient for the decision process you're engaged with.
No, I don't even think it's that. I think it's that people are pulled in a lot of directions. I think they lack focus. I think it's more a question of focus, right? I think you think the same thing. I'm not saying anything I haven't heard you say a million times. The folks who are working in these hotels, the folks who are working in the management companies, the folks who are working in the corporate offices are smart, they're dedicated, they're hardworking, etc. They're just pulled in a million directions. And if we just focus, Darlene, to your point about the financial folks, one of the ways you make the investment is don't go back to the well for money for every single damn thing under the sun. Make a commitment that we're going to invest here, we're going to invest here, we're going to invest here, and the rest of it we're not going to touch right now because we don't see the value. Maybe, so one of our models, one of our frameworks that we use, and this is not brilliant, I'm more than happy to say it out loud because anybody can use it, is core and explore, right? You're going to spend 80 to 90% of your budget on some very, very core things, and you're going to leave a small bit of budget to explore and do little tests. And if you can do those little tests within that 10% of your budget or your 15% of your budget, by all means do. And if they don't fit in the budget, then you're not ready for them. Wait till you're in a position where you are ready for them and then do the exploration there. But don't chase every single thing, because then you can spend the money where it matters, which is on creating a better guest experience at every touch point. And then you will drive more revenues, which then makes the next conversation with the asset manager or whomever you have to, beat over the head to get a couple of dollars out of much, much, much simpler.
Yeah.
Well, and there's an additional aspect in addition to focus, though. It's also the perspectives of the people, and some of that comes into how are they rewarded for their behaviors. And a lot of those assets are, you've got to squeeze X dollars on this plan, and you've got to do it in the fourth quarter. And if you do it in the fourth quarter, you get this sack of coins, sort of thing over here. And there may be very, very significant barriers between you trying to get that person to give up their sack of coins, which looks like a sure thing, for you to say, well, if you do this, that's going to be great for the customer. And the reward system is in conflict, right? It's something you need. Sure. It's going to be good. I think when you want to do something, it's very important to have your information laid out and communicated in with contemplating what the receiver of that information, who is maybe the decision maker, what are the formats that they like? What works for them? How do you make them better and accomplish their goals? Because if you're just doing the bang against, you got to do this, they're a jerk. They aren't. That's true. It's a lot of them. Just the goals aren't aligned, right? And that's so exactly you're both trying to make the hotel better and do things and that, but it's like you don't have all their information, they don't have all your information. It's your job to kind of get them as much of the pertinent information that you have that they need to make this decision because it's great, and to make that happen. So that takes, again, some effort and focus and then most people, that's when you get into the distraction of they've got other things to do.
And come into common agreement, or at least understanding of what you each mean when you say the word better.
Or compromise. Some compromise in there where you go, maybe we start on here, and especially if you can do something, if you know they are not going to buy off on 10 grand for this thing because we really need it. But can that thing be broken down into 425? Hey, we're going to test this. If this work, then we'll do this, right? And you lay out I'm a big fan of looking at what the finish line looks like. And you
Right.
go, hey, to get this done, what has to happen? Right?
Right.
It's Darlene may remember.
Mentally.
Darlene may remember this when we were at Sabre. I've used this a long, many times on this podcast. We were set up by the CEO of Sabre to do a hotel thing because we thought there was this huge opportunity. Sabre was only doing less than 2% of the world's hotel bookings, even though we were handling 50% of the automated bookings at this time in the late 90s. And the first thing we did was say, what do you need to the CEO? And we're doing 50, 60 million bucks a year in revenue.
Right.
He said, if it's not $500 million in revenue, don't bug me. Right. So we knew from the beginning, which was a complete just blow us off, go away, kid, get off my lawn, response. And we understood that. But we then, he wanted $500 million a year in sales, and he wanted 25% margins as minimum. That was the price of entry.
Cost of entry.
Sure. Yep. That was what you had to do. And by God, we came, right? And then gave him 3 investment scenarios to go do that, checked off all the boxes for what they wanted. And then the organization, because they had been burnt by hotel stuff previously, made the decision that, wow, that looks great. And by God, our good friends at McKinsey & Company, who back in the 90s, we paid $500,000 to validate our numbers over a couple months. Everything looked great. Everybody's up for it. And they just went, we don't like that, right? It's too scary, right? And that's a problem. We did everything right, but their decision set, were they idiots? Well, yeah, looking back, probably. They could have really changed the industry. But they didn't, for some, to them, good reason. They had conservative financial guys sitting there going, hey, we heard a pitch. We just, 6 years before, we got hung out for $125 million for something that didn't work and failed. Now, again, it was their fault that they managed it properly.
Well, sure.
But still, they realized we tried this once and it didn't work. The wheels fell off and there was pain inflicted on people. I don't want to repeat that. Yeah.
What you're looking to do is, and this was a great piece of advice I got from a boss of mine years and years and years ago. I went in and I had, a deck, this deck, I'm kind of exaggerating, but I had all the slides and everything. And my boss said, we've got like 20 minutes to have a conversation about this. What you need to do is make it easy for me to say yes.
Yes, I get that a lot from people that are in high-level compressed industry stuff that they don't have a lot. They need to know exactly what it is, so they make it easy. Make it easy for me to say yes.
Right, because if you don't, the answer is no.
And there's a certain but there's a certain amazing logic to that if you're trying to convince somebody of something, the goal is for them to agree with you. So putting it up as a question is an immediate halfway failure, because if you're putting it into a way you can fall either side of the fence, half of your conversation is lost in the suppositional. Where if you're putting everything into the conditional, you're really trying to drive them to the conclusion that you're there spending time with them. It is, I feel this way, I see this thing, here's my points as to why. Not, I had to consider this, and then this was in contrast, or this is an option, but I think this one's better. You do that, and you've killed half your opportunity of success with the time you're spending with them. So there's a certain very simplistic logic to that process that says, that's what I'm there talking to you for. Hey,
here's the risk, here's the reward, and here's the outcome.
And here's how we're going to get there, if you want to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And if you can do that, even with the presentation, to say, okay, and that's what we did. We said, so where do we have to do? If you see something like this, you say yes, right? And we kind of had that agreement, and it didn't work out in that scenario. But that's okay.
That's Guy Kawasaki's great pitch deck, right? Have you guys seen this? This is fantastic. This goes way back. Guy Kawasaki was an evangelist for Apple years ago, and he has the greatest pitch deck ever sold, right?
Do we lose Tim?
He's frozen.
Tim froze.
Tim is all about.
That was the pitch deck. That was it.
The drama. It's the cliffhanger.
I'm back. 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. And if you cannot tell your story in that format, you're not ready to go ask somebody to say yes for it, to it.
Very good point. Very good point. I wanted to throw in, because I know Ed isn't here for him to rebuke the fact that I like to bring technology, but we always once in a while bring in some tools. I had the pleasure, as you guys know, I run around with the Rocket programs.
Don't call Ed a tool. He's not here to do
Ed's a tool. He doesn't like tools.
Stop.
So I run around with Bonnie Buckheiser in the Rocket program for HSMAI, and she, in her presentation through the whole revenue process, she does a phenomenal job. She talks about carbon paper training, and of course she makes jokes about, you have to be old enough to remember carbon paper to even know what carbon paper training is. But the idea of it is that a company will go through and spend money in training somebody. But through the cycle of evolution of replacement people and positions and so forth, the training turns into a lot like you see faxes. Back when they used to be used, where you get some mangled, half-angled, very faded, hard to read. Nobody ever redid the form. They just kept using some copy of some form to do it, right? So she calls it carbon paper training, where you take somebody on a system, teach them, they remember what they remember, they forget what they forget, obviously, and then only that part gets handed down to the next person that takes over their role, if you're so lucky to even have them trained. Eventually, 2 or 3 generations out, you're dealing with a very expensive system that's being run by a very poorly educated person.
Right.
Not that they're not dumb or anything. It's just they didn't give the full training that they had from the first person. Right. So I was looking at a way of trying to solve that. I came across a couple of tools that I gave to a couple of my clients that are absolutely freaking loving them at this point. And one is called Fleek, F-L-E-E-Q. And this is the cool part that it does. You turn it on, and every time you click on a screen, it captures it. Now, it creates a deck of these as you go along, and you go back in and you type what you want to say you captured that screen for. You can highlight it, arrow it, circle it, fade it, blur it if there's confidential data, whatever. Okay? And you put this together and you type in what you want to say about it, hit make, and it makes a video out of all the deck. And it audio translates what you typed in 18 languages if you want it. So you can have, if you need it in Spanish training or English training, whatever like this, you simply indicate the language that you want them to listen it to, and it translates what you type it into, and it highlights the slide deck as you go along. And what it has done is that as they roll in new technology to their play, because they're doing a whole mess of innovations, they're changing the PMS systems, they're changing all this other stuff, is that as they're going through the training, they're making these people click as they go through their processes to create train decks that make videos that are audio, and they're putting it into an FAQ to diminish that carbon paper training problem that will happen. Is there's going to be attrition. That the person that's being trained now is not always going to be in the position of it. But now there's a residual deck of their training process in audio as well video, because it makes the video out of it. That is a perpetual thing that now if somebody goes to sit in the chair, the person, if they have the fortune to teach the next person, can use that as the start point and then refine the details that maybe didn't get covered when they did it first time around. And the other part, that there's another one that's not video wise, is called StepShot, STEP shot.net. And that one, you literally do the same thing, and it's a little bit more robust on what you can do to make it. Makes a deck or an iBook or whatever way you want to do it, that you can do step-by-step stuff. That's a lot more fun when it comes to teaching your family member how to log into something or whatever, because it highlights the spot you click it as you click on the screen, and it does all the decks that way, and it makes a static deck of slides that you can send that says this is how you load this or program this or whatever. So it gives you some fundamental function tools. So since we haven't introduced some tools in a while, I wanted to throw those in as being kind of fun property level solution processes that if you want to teach your next front desk person how, after learning Marsha or whatever, OnQ, to go over and be able to go step by step in the process without you having to take your time to sit down side by side with them on a screen to do it, kind of stuff. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's just kind of a little fun throw-in thing, because we hit news so much now. I'm like, I want to throw some tools back in there. That's tools in the show.
That's great, and I'm putting the
links. Thank you.
And
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Lauren, that you marked again my comment as spam.
I have tried. I said no. I like it. So why does it make spam? Everything Robert puts in there is like, I'm sorry, that's spam. I'm sorry, that's spam. Even when he posts on Facebook. Did you guys look at the video that Stuart shared with us about Burger King?
That was awesome.
I forgot to put that.
I mean, I can play it. I have it queued up. Maybe I can share screen.
Before you play it, I apologize.
We don't have to. We don't even have to, but it's pretty brilliant.
9 minutes to 1 I've got to run. I have a clock, so I got to 12 on your side.
How can you have something that you're sitting in the world's famous kitchen of MI6 in London, aren't you? I mean, that is the breakout room of it.
Yeah, I
appreciate the backdrop.
I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location today. I was mentioning to Lauren beforehand that I'm happy to share this. This is not anything conspiratorial or anything. My daughter had oral surgery this morning, so she's resting on our couch, and I'm just keeping an eye. So that's why I'm sitting in the kitchen this morning as opposed to in the office.
I'm sure her hearing our conversation is a good form of anesthetic. So it's probably knocked her out completely.
That's why I'm wearing these, Robert. She can't hear the conversation, right? Exactly.
Well, she can hear your side of the conversation.
Right, exactly. Well, she's wearing headphones and I think watching Rooster Teeth videos, so it's all good. So, but nonetheless, unfortunately, I do have to take off. I've got a commitment at 1:00. So I'm gonna take off. If you want to, by all means, share the video. The video is awesome. It's a great way to demonstrate net neutrality. I thought it was really, really good.
I did too.
It's posted in the comment stream. So.
We can watch it, but I mean, it'd be a few minutes. But Tim, if people want to know more about what you do, and by the way, please make sure they understand that you have an absolutely phenomenal podcast that is literally a do not miss each week. You and Field Travels are the two that I will never miss. Actually, there's three. There's also social media.
I appreciate it.
But I do not miss it.
So I am, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I am at timpeter.com. If you're interested in the podcast, you can go to timpeter.com/podcast, or each episode is posted in the blog, which you can find the link to the blog on timpeter.com. On social, I'm usually Tim Peter or Tim Peter Associates, except on Twitter, which for some reason I am at TC Peter. A marvelous success.
Late to the game.
Actually, no. The funny thing is, I've been on Twitter since 2007. I was early to the game. It just didn't occur to me that I was ever going to use it for anything real. Yeah, so I didn't want my real name at the time. I didn't want my go-to name. And then, of course, by the time I realized this is something I'm using a lot, Tim Peter was no longer available. So, so timpeter.com, you can find everything there. I unfortunately will not be here next week. I am doing a 3-day workshop for a client, so I will be unavailable for those couple of days.
Wow.
But I will see you. I will see you on the 9th.
Now, as far as I know, we are going to be broadcasting live the digital conference this year.
I won't be at the digital conference either. I will be at the Adrian's, but I have a commitment.
Because he's getting an award, and after he gets that award, he's going to forget all the little people who knew him.
Yes, he'll pick up the hardware, but he won't do the shareware.
Yeah. We know people like that. We've seen them.
Yeah. Now that you get the old plaque there, then next thing you know, it just goes in the back and puts on the shelf.
Climbing the ladders over the broken bones of those below him.
Well, Lauren and Robert, somebody has to do it. I mean,
that's right.
Don't worry. I won't forget the little people like you.
The little people, yes.
Well,
no.
The minions.
As they say, anything I have accomplished, I have stood on the shoulders of giants. So I'm very fortunate and very grateful for what is shaping up to be a really nice year all around. So
this one, but good start.
But yeah, unfortunately, I will not be at the conference this year, and I wish I were. Unfortunately, I had a client commitment that I had to commit to before the dates for the conference were locked. So that's been on the books for a while. So,
well, we have a hopeful worthy replacement for you for the live show coverage, and that is Jackie, who is the president of the HSMA APAC group, who wants to start doing live shows, has wanted to become our apprentice in training, as it were, as to what we do. Yeah. Which after 5 minutes of that, I don't know what she's going to do, but I mean, we're going to space outside, so she'll be joining us for most of the live coverage of it, and I've had the wonderful extension of being asked to participate in a presentation, one of the breakouts in the afternoon. So I'll actually need the help to have it covered, Robert. So between you and Jackie, you'll take over the show and take it in the afternoon. So, but anyway, Tim, you have to run. I'm sorry.
A follower of the Jedi or a young Jedi is a Padawan. What is it when they're a Sith one, Lauren? I don't know.
You know what? The competition.
Fantastic.
Anyway,
All right. Well, I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. So enjoy, everybody, and see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tim, for your time. Appreciate it.
Bye, Tim.
Bye, Tim.
Bye.
Well, wow, change the screen real quick. So with that in mind, I mean, I threw the tools in. We can play the video. I mean, we can do a little bit later because there's some really good other items, Tim, Robert, we haven't got to that if we have time. I mean, Darlene, you good? You still got a little time with it? You can hang with us on this? We can
No, I have a hard stop in about 3 minutes.
Dang it, Robert.
Okay, there are two things I do want to cover. Anybody who wants to know about Bitcoin, we do not need to talk about it here on the show, but I will post in the comments a great article from the New York Times Magazine. It is very long. I suggest if you're talking about tools, there are some things of, text to voice translators, things like that we could talk about, which is actually how I wound up listening to it. It is a long article, but it really encapsulates what's going on with the blockchain and how these things are funded, the positives, negatives, and the whole change of like these open protocols of what's coming. So I will post that. It's called Beyond the Bitcoin Bubble. Yeah, it's
and it'll just come up as spam anyway.
And thank you for marking those as spam, Lauren. That is not good.
It's my contribution to your post. Now you're doing me. I don't know why it keeps coming up as spam because I mean I do by liking. I thought by liking because obviously when you put contra links into it as well that when you start putting links they do try to get early flagged as spam. But I thought by the host of whatever it is that's being broadcast you're attaching it to that it would keep it away from it. But apparently it doesn't. But
I'm wondering what the
host of whatever it is that's being broadcast you're attaching it to that it would keep it away from it. But
we are getting an echo from Lauren.
It's not me, but
it's not you?
No, strangely enough, nothing's changed, which is anyway, it stopped, which is all the most important part. All right, what was the other item before we lose Darlene?
The only other thing is I always like to close with Rutrow. The Rutrow this week was Dublin hotel owner bans all social media influencers after exposing one asking for a free 5-night stay.
Yes.
Interesting one to comment on this since I'm sure a lot of the properties that he works with wind up getting hit with these. But this is an issue for these hoteliers, especially in smaller properties, be able to go in, somebody comes in and goes, hey, I'm an influencer, I've got these followers on Instagram, whatever, I would like to stay for 1 night, 5 nights, whatever the case may be. I was just planning that as discuss, but this one, the guy basically at the Dublin hotel basically said, enough, this is ridiculous, because the person really didn't have enough followers. It wasn't really very relevant, and there was just no real business case to it. So I think he decided to call out the practice, and it got a lot of spins. So all my friends at TBEX, I'm sure this is a very hot topic about how you do this right and avoid doing it wrong. So
what do you think, Darlene? Since we're going to lose you in a couple of minutes, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that form of blackmail isn't professional. Certainly, I can see why the hotel would. I could see why the hotel would ban that person. I don't know that banning everyone and painting everyone with the same brush is smart. So, but I could see how it would be problematic for a small property. And I think, if I look at, okay, how would a hotelier combat that? I think you have to have relationships with people, right? Whether they're digital relationships or personal relationships. And I think that is a way to sort of overcome that kind of behavior. And so, you get rid of that influencer and, tag yourself with other influencers who are more legitimate and fair.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think the way I read it was that early on, it looked like the hotelier was handling it properly by not calling out specifically, just in reference to. But to your point, Darlene, I think by banning everybody, they created a backlash for themselves that wasn't necessary. I think bringing it up to the point of like saying, "Hey, I'm calling this out because I don't think this is relevant. I don't think this is valuable." To a point, maybe blackmailish, but also to the point of what the way the hotel referred to it as self-empowering to the blogger or to the influencers they call themselves and so forth. But then by being critical of those who do have great followings as to not being acknowledged, because I'll tell you flat out, I mean, this, and too bad Ed isn't here for us on this portion. If you have somebody, we used to have a prioritization of looking at social profiles of people that were arriving, and people that were heavy into Yelp or heavy into TripAdvisor reporting and so forth. This is an opportunity to have a large voice of upgrading them or giving them opportunity. And if people don't say that hotels do that, they do it every dang day. They look at their arrivals and acknowledge the people that they think are worthy of an additional interest of value. So this is a way of doing business. But to say negatively, we're not going to recognize any value proposition with anybody is to really kind of say, did you really have to go that one step too far? I mean, this is a great point you made. This is a great example of something that is dysfunctional. But to then say that we're not going to acknowledge any value proposition about people that have large audiences might be a little bit more into the negative for them than it should have been made initially, I think. So I agree with you completely on that one. So, Darlene, but before you go, where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. In fact, I just went through, this is interesting, talking about tackling a project. I thought I had a pretty good LinkedIn profile previously, and now that I'm looking for my next gig, I thought I needed to take a more constructive look at marketing myself on LinkedIn. So I heard this guy earlier this week speak. His name is Terry Sullivan, and he's an expert on social marketing, particularly for professionals. And so he and I chatted, and it caused me to rework my entire LinkedIn profile. I mean, I tore it apart and redid it from scratch, and it was quite the exercise. But I've made it. I've made it searchable in ways that is really in the past 48 hours making a huge difference. So I would urge all professionals, whether you're looking for your next gig or you're happy with the one you have, take a look at Terry Sullivan's website. He has some amazing tips and advice on how to re-engineer how you market yourself on LinkedIn, and I'm like super happy with how it turned out. So LinkedIn is
I will post if I can get in there. I will and find it. I will go and post it here. So
yeah, and I don't have it handy, but he sent me a short white paper on it, and I'll shoot that to you guys. So if you care to share it after the fact, you'll have it.
Absolutely. We'll put it up on the show notes.
Great. Yeah.
And so LinkedIn is the best way for people to get a hold of you via all the changes. And I'm going to go look at it and see what I can learn from what you just did to all your stuff. Because to your point, back a few years when I went over and I'm looking at it, it's like LinkedIn used to be just a de facto. It's like, yeah, hey, I got one. I put this stuff in there and blah, blah, blah. But then when you want to lean on it, you look at it and go, yeah, I got to do and to take one step forward, you sometimes have to take like 5 steps backwards. It's like, I got to build that, make that, do this, build this. It is an act of a task of love, because you have to make sure that your profile, that's in the world of and platforms of, that is the platform that is the business. Yeah. And it is ironically the platform for me is like my relationships I have on there. On Facebook, I'm basically a whore. I follow and face everybody because I like to see what's going on in the world when it comes to social. But LinkedIn, it's all about, do I know you? Is it in the industry that I'm in? Is it relatable to business for me? And I have a very strict criteria as to who I associate with within LinkedIn compared to my other social platforms. So yeah, in that sense, you want your best foot forward on it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's actually a very interesting strategy too, because I think different people have different things. So I am much more constrained on my Facebook, who I connect to on Facebook. On LinkedIn though, I have I don't know, well over 1,000 requests that I haven't accepted, sort of thing. I don't always blow them away though. I just kind of have them sitting there. But
Yeah, in perpetuity.
yeah, it's
yes.
interesting. So they have to have some sort of relevance to me on a.
Is that why you have
LinkedIn
never
to-
accepted my
to
LinkedIn
do that.
invitation? There's just no relevance for us. Thanks.
Terry also offers advice on that caused me to rethink of who I connect with on LinkedIn. And effectively, what he's saying is that, first of all, you never know who is going to be the key to a connection, right? Or a new relationship that could be beneficial. So he's not saying link to everybody, and you should use your judgment when linking to people, but look at things like how many connections you have in common, look at their recommendations, look at their skill set. And if you see that they have put some effort into defining who they are on the platform, then that they're probably worthy of accepting their connection. And like I said, you never know where someone will lead you.
I used to one of my simplest criteria was if they didn't even put a profile picture in, I wouldn't even consider it.
Profile picture is very important. Absolutely.
But ironically, and this is something that I started taking to your suggestion, I started looking a little bit more of like, okay, so why are they even asking if they're not even putting the effort of identifying themselves clarity wise? And I started noticing that a lot of CEO level people and so forth, whether they just ask somebody to build something basic for them or whatever, some sort of handler for them, that there was some very high level people, if in fact they were, which they should have been because they validated their positioning. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is this guy or this girl at this level, and yet they don't even have a profile picture, but they have their account and they have their validation of employment. And it's like, okay, sure. And because then you look at who else they're connected to. So it was like a handler set up their account, but they hadn't finished it yet or something. So I then modified my, it's like to really take the time. Just don't say, oh, that's a drywall person. What do I have to know a drywall person? Little do you know that's the son of the CEO, that the reason why they're connected is because their dad knows you or something like that. And they're like, oh, well, maybe this is worth some sort of connectivity. So yeah, take the time is a great suggestion for it. So.
Yeah. So thanks, you guys. Have a good
Charlie,
one.
thank you.
Robert, I'll see you at HEDNA this week.
That's right. Yeah, I'll be in Austin for HEDNA. I think Monday evening through leaving Thursday morning.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
I get there on Tuesday, and I'm taking Vaughan Lane. You know what that is? It's the new luxury bus that leaves from Luffield nonstop.
You got to tell me about it. I
Wait,
almost took it down to high tech when it was down there. I almost took it late.
Where?
Huge lazy boy chairs in
Where-
it, and you got the Wi-Fi.
Where's it leave? Wait, where does it leave from?
It leaves from the Embassy Suites at Love Field and takes you nonstop to the Hyatt in Austin, Hyatt Regency in Austin. And then I'll just
Really?
Uber over to the Sheraton, $100 each way. And they have, great
Snacks.
chairs, Wi-Fi, food and beverage service, an attendant, a washroom, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
Wow.
yeah. I
Wow.
almost took it to go to high tech. Yeah, it was a big, and they have one that goes to Houston too. They have a route that goes to Houston as well. Yeah.
I'm trying it out.
I had not. That will be an interesting. I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
We are driving down since my daughter lives down there. My wife's coming along, so she's going to be motoring around with the car. But that'll be
Nice.
interesting, so.
Nice.
So I'll see you
Nice to
down
see.
there, Lauren. Thank you for the invite, and I'll see you next
Oh
time.
no, excellent. Thank you, Darlene, for making the time. Thank you very,
Bye.
very much. Mr. Robert, we'll put the other articles that are in the that you gave. Thank you very much again for making the list of topics today. I've come to just like, hey, you know what? You're faster, better at it. It's like I can always throw in a couple of curveballs, but for the most part, you come up with some good stuff. And since you're still sitting on the digital council, which will soon be the digital board or the marketing board, it makes sense that you just feed them the content that would be coming up on the show anyway. So I appreciate it very much.
And since the much maligned, since Ed isn't here, the Rock Cheetah news feed that he dislikes so much on Twitter. Even I don't know if he follows it or not. I'll have to actually check to see if it's on there. But it's actually you can kind of scan through the stuff and go here news and
I use Feedly a lot now more than I was before. I used to pull them off the article because of all the newsletters I signed up for, and now I just go to Feedly. It's like, you know what? Rather than me go through my emails that I subscribe, I'm like, I'll just jump over to Feedly. Now I read the articles and I'll snip them like I normally do during the week anyway. You know what we should be doing?
Right.
I mean, we should actually make this year in review book. Just take all the articles and everything we did every week this past year, slap it together, and just make a year in review book that says this is all the stuff we talked about and things we thought were important each week, and sell it on eBay.
Get rolling on that, Lauren. And
Well, it's a cut and paste. Well, hey, I had to go in, and my website is a disaster. I have right now. I moved over hosting, and I lost my security sale on it because I had all the links to all of our show broadcasts on all the posts for each show, and for also on all the archive pages. Well, they were all using Cloudflare, and
right.
Blab died, so all those Cloudflare polls were toxic. Hausa died. All those Cloudflare links were toxic. So I had hundreds of links trying to hit Cloudflare, which lost my security seal, and it went over and killed my speed load times on my site because they were all trying to pull up when the site was coming up for their links, and it created a caching issue that was. So I had to go through this past week and literally got out, I think, almost 180 direct links. The only ones left are the ones we shifted over to.
So did you had the actual links going to the Cloudflare address as opposed to the canonical
No,
address for
in the iframes, in the iframe itself, the links that were being provided by Blab and Hausa at the time were Cloudflare referrals. So all those hrefs were going out to Cloudflare. So they turned toxic.
Canonical. Yeah.
Right. So it just turned into a toxic poll that wasn't allowing me to secure the site. It created a whole mess. So I had to rip all them out. I saved all the Hausa links because they still seem to be harbored. I did do a local copy before Hausa got lost, but we lost some of the Blab ones when Blab went under. We lost some of the earlier shows. We have the topics, but we don't have the show links anymore, or the shows recorded because I never did a hard record on them. But I grabbed all the Hausa ones when we had them. I have those on local. I'll eventually reconstitute those into the archives as just YouTube referral ones. I'll just load them up into YouTube and do them on pages and just put them on I'll probably kill the posts. Well, actually, I won't kill the posts. I just won't put them on the post, but I'll put it back to the archive page. But I had to clean all that up.
So you changed hosting providers. You lost your
my SSL. Yeah, and I still have a problem with it because I went from Apache to II8, and because of that, the SSL is not identifying it. And I can't reload my homepage right now because the 4 cachings of CSS, JavaScript, and the 2 others I'm blanking out on, media and something else. Anyway, I can't do my caching queue on it. So I've upgraded my homepage to be awesome. It's got all my stuff on it, and I can't get past the original homepage where my nav bar is gone, and it says, "Hey, you want to be on the first page of Google?" I was like, "No, I don't want it on my page." Everything else behind is great, but the homepage is still screwed up, and I'm still trying to get that solved. I gotta ticket into the platform developer as to what went wrong.
Your homepage is looking okay. I mean, we've got your little. What theme are you using? Did you use like a? WordPress,
WP3. Right? Yeah, it's WordPress. Oh yeah, no WordPress. Yeah, I do it on WordPress. But behind it, it's fine. I got my partnerships. I got my staff listings. I got my project listings. I got all the postings up there. I got to update the newer ones for the past couple of shows to make those in there. But it's funny because I have a client in process right now, and going through the conversation, it's like, well, I'm so glad I got to talk to you because I went to your website. It's like, please don't. It's like the cobbler's kids, okay? They don't have shoes because I'm too busy making shoes for everybody else. Don't look at my website as indicative of what I do because it ain't doing nothing right now. It's really just a harbor new show.
It doesn't look that bad. It looks.
If you go just to the links that we provide, like /live and stuff, it functions fine. It's the homepage I can't get updated, even though it's in the queue to be updated. It won't update to the host. So I'm trying to work on the ticket.
Well, I've got it all with the you've got the little carousel mobile focus strategies with your little
but scroll down. Does it say do you want to get on the first page of Google? Does it have a nav bar on the top?
It says appear on the front page of Google. It doesn't have anything to the left of that.
Right, that's all wrong. That whole page is wrong. That whole page is wrong.
Oh,
nothing about that. Yeah, that whole page is not right, and that's my homepage that I'm having the problem with. If you get past it. The footers work, the header works, but the homepage Live Composer that I'm using is not allowing the content to be updated.
So what's WordPress? Are you using a WordPress template to go do that, or a framework or something?
Oh no, it's not WordPress. It's a template that I purchased and then modified. WP3 something or other. Anyway, it was working fine until I made the host shift.
The WP3. Okay.
So it has a load issue, and it's mainly because it can't cache the updates correctly to the host. And I don't know whether it's an Apache to II8 or whether it's just a template issue because I changed over to II8. So I have a ticket into the platform, the template developer to go, why can't I update my host site? Or my homepage. So anyway, it's a work in process because I really was so happy. I spent hours getting my homepage looking rocking. And then I go back and I can't get it updated. It's like one of those. Anyway,
it's actually interesting. Actually, a couple interesting notes. There's a little Chrome plugin called Built With. It's really nice. You can go to all the websites and see what they're using in terms of the underlying technology. So, yep. So you're on IIS, which is great. You actually have Apache as well. So
I think that's what's creating the conflict. Yeah, I think that's what's creating the issue.
And actually, are you hosted on GoDaddy?
No, not anymore, and that's the problem.
Okay, so you've got a bunch of stuff that's hanging out there. You've got some GoDaddy. It's at least flagged as GoDaddy in that, and your SSL certificate is through GoDaddy as well. So
right,
yeah,
that's where I lost SSL. There's a half camp problem right now. So I got to go back to my new hosting server and go, dude, get with GoDaddy. Let's finish the DNS transfer complete because there's still stuff pointing towards the wrong place. So yeah, I'm in the process of having fun conversations with them on that.
You should be able. Yeah, I would. I always use FileZilla. FileZilla is a good one, but you may be able to go and do some sort of PHP thing on the back end, or go into the WordPress database or whatever. And gee, I'm trying to think between those two. I would go try to find anything that says GoDaddy or Pat. I mean, now that's going to be in the setup. I've got to think you get into FileZilla and start yanking out some stuff from the.
I'm going to have a conversation with the new hoster. It's like, look, dude.
Yeah. It's got to be something in your root directory that you start yanking that stuff out, and it'll go away and start behaving. But yeah, now I have this. I have the same problem. I've got mine set up on a different subdirectory, or basically a different area to do my new one. But it's just I do not know what's exactly going on with my hosting one, because I have this really cool kind of map type thing that works, and it's highly interactive. And I can make it work doing certain things, but it's not functioning right in Chrome. I think it's something with a number of basically the bandwidth that's required, or the number of simultaneous pulls. But there's something that's broken in it, and it's like
the joys of website hosting, right?
Everything, and I can't make it go live, and most everything else is looking pretty good. But it's like, man,
I love it. It's so funny that sometimes one step forward, 5 steps back kind of stuff. But anyway, so we can wrap this one up. Robert, will you be able to join us next week as well?
Friday I will be back, so I'll be able to do a Hedna recap. I am doing a session at Hedna on the Wednesday afternoon. We will see how the attendance is if people start bailing out. But they did throw in a Wednesday dinner, which was good. So maybe the people will hang around for drinks and food to watch our thing. But on the blockchain with Doug Rice, formerly of HTNG, who's moderating, and a fellow from Winding Tree who's doing their ICO on Friday. So we're going to have a little debate about what's going on with the blockchain.
Nice. So those who are attending Hedna, make sure you stay long enough to go over and catch Robert's session then Wednesday afternoon, because there'll be food and drink afterwards.
Hopefully 35 minutes of relatively painless what's going on with the blockchain. So.
Awesome. Mr. Robert, if people want to know more about what you do and what Rockcheetah is, where do they go?
You can certainly look at rockcheetah.com, which is a secure site. I have a working SSL certificate, Lauren.
Salt on the wound.
And the pages load pretty fast, and we got some Google AMP pages working, all that sort on the old site. But yeah, graphically, content-wise, it's okay. But it's going to be changing. But you can look at rockcheetah.com. That hopefully, I don't know when it's going to get redone. Probably 9 months from now, given the number of projects I have.
Under the next revision.
Try to be. I'm not on a 2-week update, roll on this sort of thing. Either that or Robert K. Cole on pretty much any social media you come across, I'll be there.
Steady. For those who want to play back the entire sorted episode of today, and along with show notes and links to all the things that we discussed that may not have been shared, or you didn't get the chance to see them shared on Facebook on our live broadcast. And there we're also simulcast on YouTube, which you can find under Lauren Gray. Unfortunately, at my hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, we do not have enough subscribers yet to actually go over and allow it for live broadcast. So it's kind of a catch-22. In order to get live broadcast, you need enough subscribers. In order to have enough subscribers, you need enough live broadcast. So it is a kind of a circular thing. So as the more we keep posting live shows over to that platform on YouTube, the sooner we can broadcast as Hospitality Digital Marketing on YouTube and not as under my personal one, which I had lots of other videos before, which gave me subscribers.
And because we were signing off, nobody's watching this. Black hat tip. I would not do that. Actually, I have not done this, but Lauren, depending on your kind of ethical, moral fiber, you can probably go to Fiverr and get some subscribers and get that number.
I know. I'm doing it the slow way.
He's doing it the white hat way. Which kudos to you, sir.
I'm making it slow and I'm making it long, but we'll get it there someday for it. But it is also on YouTube, and we also simulcast on Twitter. And you can find it at Lauren Gray or at Hospitality Tweet or Hospitality Ecom as the Twitter handles for all of those. They were simulcast on all of those. And Facebook is at... Go
ahead. Tell them Facebook.
No, and also on Facebook at Hospitality Digital Marketing as our Facebook page. And we always keep everything posted. You can subscribe to following us. We have that also on the website at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. You can subscribe. I'll send you a notification. If you give me your phone number, I'll give you even a little text reminder 15 minutes before the show so that you can join us. And you can join us on your phone, tablet, laptop, desktop. It fits everywhere for that. And you can join the conversation. You actually sit beside Robert and I on the screen if you're so inclined. We'll give you a chair, and you can pontificate as much as we do, or contribute as much, or disagree with us as much if you'd like,
or try to get a word, or try to
get a word in edgewise if you like. 6 chairs are always available. Right now, I think the last count we had, we were averaging over 6,000 viewerships of the show, and right now we clicked over 26 countries now. So fun that we're actually getting that global. In our distribution. So thank you for all those who do watch and listen to us over the course of each week. We do every Friday, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central. What does that make it? 9:30 Mountain and 8:30 Pacific time.
There we go. So I was just going to make the point that it's interesting. As you haven't figured out by now, Lauren and I are both idiots because we do our own website development.
Yes.
So it's a true eat your own dog food approach to development. Yes. Now
we'll talk about how the dirt tastes because we're digging the ditch. Yeah, we'll tell you how the dirt's tasting because we're digging the ditch with you.
Yeah, absolutely right. So always fun to get into the weeds on that stuff.
Yes, on that. Well, Mr. Robert, thank you as always for making all the content that we had today on the show when it comes to the news articles and so forth, and the rows and the headlines, and for feeding that over to the Digital Council. Bless their hearts. Hopefully, we'll get a couple of their faces to pop in from time to time. Although we do know that in the background today we had Holly. Zoba, we had Mr. Bob Gilbert, president of HSMA, pop in on the show.
We had Ed St. Austin.